Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. I'm, of course, Greg God, depending upon how you know me, joined here by Casey. And for your viewing pleasure, we will be presenting our next installment of BangHead History. So I'm just going to go ahead and toss it over to you. Casey, what are we going to talk about here today?
Well, I just wanted to look up something that was relevant for today, and I was curious about it myself. So we're going with the history between Ukraine and Russia.
Okay.
So, to start off...
to start off, we should probably state the obvious of what happened on Thursday and,
right.
building up to Thursday.
So Russia invaded Ukraine. There's not really... There's a lot to it, but...
And hopefully this will help you understand a little bit better.
And most of what you're hearing right now, especially from mainstream sources, is all propaganda. They're saying how they're hard fighting back and all that. But more along the lines, they're saying that basically Ukraine is kind of in a hopeless situation, but they're just trying to make Russia bleed on the way in.
Gotta respect that.
Going out in a blaze of glory.
Thoughts going out to the men on the ground in Ukraine.
All right.
So let's begin.
So, start off. Ukraine's capital was at the center of the first Slavic state. It was called Kievan Rus, and it is the birthplace of both Ukraine and Russia. And the leader at the time was Vladimir the First. So there's two guys named Vladimir. One today, right now, and then back in the day there was Vladimir the First, back in 988 AD.
I don't know if you know this, but was his nickname Vlad the Impaler?
No.
That's
a different Vladimir. Yeah.
Right.
He was the pagan prince of Novgorod and a prince of Kylov. I don't know how to say that. And that's the time when he accepted Orthodox Christianity faith and was baptized. So that's the birth of Russia and the Ukraine. So they were both basically one and the same back in the day. So throughout their time, there's been a lot of changes to put hands between Russia, Ukraine. They had Mongol warriors from the east. They conquered Kievan Rus in the 13th century. In the 16th century, the Polish and the Lithuanian armies invaded from the west. So there was a war between the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Tsardom of Russia. So back in the day, the leaders of Russia, they were called the Tsars. Most famous of those was Alexander. So at that time, Polish and Lithuania controlled the eastern side of Ukraine, and the Tsars in Russia, the Tsar in Russia, controlled the western side of Ukraine. Kind of similar to the way it is right now, in a way. How there's more pro-Russian in eastern Ukraine,
on the eastern side,
and there's more pro-Western in the western side.
It's funny how geographic work.
Right. And things haven't changed since the 17th century.
There you go. You heard it here first.
So more than a century later, in 1793, Western Ukraine was invaded and annexed by Russia. So this happened once before, many years ago, in 1793.
1793. It is a long time.
So, Ukraine suffered really hard times, especially at the times of Joseph Stalin in the Communist Revolution of 1917. Ukraine was one of many countries that fought a brutal civil war to try to keep Russia and the communists out of the country, but they failed basically. And Stalin himself, he orchestrated a famine that resulted in the starvation and deaths of many Ukrainians, not just Ukrainians, but people all around Russia.
Was it not mainly targeted at the
It was
Slavic
I mean,
states? Is that what they call them?
right, and then after he starved and killed millions and millions of peoples, he tried to repopulate the eastern, Ukraine and all the eastern countries, but areas controlled by Russia.
Right. Win the hearts and minds with breeding.
Right. Well, just removing the people that would fight you and replacing them with people that are with you. You know what I mean?
Through breeding.
Yeah. So after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine became an independent nation. So we're jumping pretty far in time.
Yes, now we're more into contemporary history and,
Right.
and events and so on and so forth that I actually remember. You probably remember some of them too.
Right. So after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine becomes an independent nation. There was a presidential election in Ukraine. Ukrainians approved democratically that they no longer wanted to be part of Russia, and they elected a man named Kravchuk. So and they're saying that this was a fairly fair election, but that's dependent upon
Right.
where you're looking from.
That's always debatable.
Right. So in '94.
A fairly fair election.
Right.
That's an interesting way to put it.
So in '94, the Kravchuk was beaten out as president by Kuchma. I don't know if I'm saying any of these names right.
Yeah, sorry if we're butchering the names, but Russian names are very hard to pronounce.
Right. Which was also considered to be a fair election, and then
Although I will say, if that is that president's name, I actually kind of like it.
right. And then in '99, Kuchma was reelected, and that vote is considered to be riddled with irregularities.
As in, he was trying to keep, the presidency,
that would
so
be
maybe
my guess.
there was some
Right.
shady stuff going on.
Right. I didn't 100% look into what the irregularities might be, but I would. There's a lot of history of politicians who are in power using their power to corrupt the system so that they can stay in power. And that just doesn't go for Ukraine or Russia, or that also goes. It's everywhere, right? So in 2004, pro-Russian candidate Viktor Yanukovych, Alright. I am butchering the names in this.
That's okay.
He is declared president, but the allegations of rigging rigging the votes triggers protests, and this is known, and it's pretty famous or big thing that happened in Ukraine is called the Orange Revolution. This is basically thousands of Ukrainians marched to support. They wanted because Yanukovych was more of a pro-Russia type politician, and many Ukrainians, especially in the western side of Ukraine, wanted to be more of a Western civilization.
What was the name of that revolution again?
The Orange Revolution. Is this an Orange Revolution? Everyone, we're just going to wear orange mustache. Everybody's going to have an orange mustache.
The Orange Revolution! Reborn!
So, in 2013, Yanukovych's government suspends trade and association talks with the EU. So, Yanukovych, pro-Russian candidate, voted or became president, and he suspends talks with trade over the EU. And this is back in 2013.
Yeah.
In 2014, big protests once again in Ukraine, and they too turned violent. In February, the parliament votes to remove Yanukovych from power, and he flees to Russia. Within days, armed men seize the parliament of Ukraine in the region of Crimea and raise the Russian flag. So now Eastern Europe, Eastern and Western Ukraine, which have been separated ideologically since the 16th, 17th century, are now basically, they've been in a civil war since 2014. Now they're drawn lines, and they've been fighting back and forth with each other since 2014.
I think at this point in time, it's well beyond drawing a line.
Right. There's no more lines today, but we're not there quite there yet.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but I believe Crimea is a region that is rich in actually like oil, or it's either I believe it's oil, not natural gas, which most of Russia is known for.
Okay.
I
did not know that. Yeah. So let's move on. So that same year, 2014, the separatists in Russia in the eastern region declared independence, and fighting has continued sporadically into this year, and it is now full-blown war. But in January of 2021, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he appealed to Biden, who is currently the president of the United States, to let Ukraine join NATO. And by the way, there's a lot of people saying that if the United States just came out and straight up said, or NATO straight up said, that Ukraine will not become part of NATO, the fighting might have not happened in the first place. But here's another thing. It's kind of a strange situation to say something like that, because there are countries that border Russia that are already in NATO.
I was going to make this point if you did.
There's like 2 or 3 different countries.
I think it's 3.
So there's something. So there's
Lithuania, Estonia, and I can't remember the third one.
So there's something special about Ukraine, where Russia does not want Ukraine to become part of NATO and to be more affiliated with Europe. And part of that might be because of the separatists that Western Ukraine or Eastern Ukraine has always been pro-Russia. And the other part of that is because of pipelines that they're building from Russia into Europe and trying to cut out the middleman, which, by the way, is probably a mixture of U.S. and European interests, kind of taking the profit out of moving energy from Russia to Europe, which, by the way, Europe is extremely dependent on this energy, especially countries that have been trying to be more green, like Germany, who has shut down their nuclear reactors because they're idiots. Because there's only two positive forms of energy right now, and that is fossil fuels and nuclear energy. Any other energy you use, like electric, like lithium-powered batteries and stuff like that, it costs more in fossil fuel to mine and remove, and other forms are not as dependent, like wind and solar.
Okay. Anyway, back to Ukraine. I have a point to make.
Okay.
Did you know that Ukraine, the main staple of their economy is agriculture? Did you know that Ukraine produces enough food in 1 year to feed 600 million people?
So basically, it's kind of like the breadbasket of...
That's the breadbasket of their economy.
Right.
Now, granted that, they do have some, energy producing things and, obviously the pipelines and stuff.
Okay.
But, I don't know, that's just another layer of the,
Okay.
thing. Could it be like, oh man...
Yeah, something just as basic as food.
Where can you grow food in Russia? Know?
And a lot of people feel like, especially very powerful people, have been buying up farmland, and
That is true.
I don't know this for a fact, but I know that within the past 5 years, Bill Gates has been buying up a whole lot of farmland, and he now owns more farmland than any individual in the United States.
All right, well, there we go. The BangHead history, tenuous, I would say, relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Thanks for putting that together, Casey. It's very, very interesting. Especially it just seems like ever since like 1600, so somewhere around there is where that bit started. It's always been very, as I've said, tumultuous.
It's boiled over countless times. It's going to continue boiling over. It's always going to be. It's obviously a country that's. It's obviously something that's wanted. A country that's wanted by both sides.
That's true. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. I'm, of course, Gregor Guy, joined here by Casey, and thank you for watching.